I'm curious as to what the Trey Lance conversation is like because for the most part, it's a done deal. I mean, Trey Lance is not a 49er any longer. Well, I know we all have opinions and we all have takes and we've shared them on our own show, but like what's the new angle that we're going to kick around in terms of the Trey Lance conversation? Because we've all spent months now of, well, if Brock's not healthy, can Sam see ghosts and all the rest of the nonsense we've gone through, right?
Well, yes. First of all, yes. I do think it changed within the last 3 weeks. Once the preseason started and we actually got to watch them play live football, that took the conversation in a different direction, and there was commentary in the form of Kyle Shanahan talking and the quarterbacks talking. You know, it all started with the surprise that they showed up to camp and they're like, yeah, Brock's here. Yeah, and he's going to practice. And we're like, what? At the beginning of camp?
Right.
Yeah, and stuff. Yeah, here comes Brock. And that sent it off in a certain direction. And, yeah, it's been very, very passionate ever since then. Sure, you're right. It changes. Although I still feel like, from an emotional standpoint, a lot of 49er fans, and y'all can speak to this. We'll take your calls on it right now. 888-957-9570. It feels like there are emotional loose ends that still need to be tied. I don't really know why, but there are. You can feel it. You can see it. It comes usually in the form of Kyle needs to be accountable. The 49ers, this is the worst draft pick of all time.
Right.
Or whatever, or even the one we were talking about an hour ago, why do the 49ers keep getting a free pass? And so that's an emotional loose end that needs to be tied. I don't know what that means when someone says the 49ers are getting a free pass. What does that even mean? Like, I would love to hear someone explain that to me, what that actually means in a tangible sense. The Niners are being given a free pass. If you'd like them to not be given a free pass, what does that look like to you? I really hope no one is suggesting that Kyle Shanahan should be fired. But I do wonder if there's some people out there that are like, I'll never look at Kyle the same again. I'll never view him the same. I bet that's true for some fans.
I do think that this puts a certain amount of extra pressure on Brock Purdy in light of what you're talking about in terms of Kyle Shanahan.
That's
because Kyle Shanahan has now anointed Brock Purdy more so than ever before as the quarterback of the future. Now, by the future, I mean the next 2 years, at which time Brock Purdy will either get a contract extension and he'll sign on to be the real quarterback of the future, or they're going to make a move at that point. I don't think that Kirk Cousins is in play at the end of this year unless something goes terribly, terribly wrong with Brock Purdy, physically or otherwise. So by getting rid of Trey Lance, by trading for a fourth-round pick and getting Trey Lance off the roster, to me, that puts more eggs in the Brock Purdy basket, because now if Brock Purdy doesn't progress, if he doesn't succeed, if he doesn't do as well as, Kyle thinks and the fans think, then what? Because if Sam Darnold is going to stay here next year, he's going to get a big raise, and Kyle already said he wants a quarterback on a rookie deal, and he's got that in Brock Purdy, provided Brock Purdy still is good.
Well, Sam, I have no idea. I mean, if Sam is still QB2, he's not going to command a huge raise. Like, those numbers don't get that high unless you're going to be QB1.
Right.
And I certainly doubt that scenario. We'll see how the season plays out. I don't think you're wrong. However, I wonder if that would have been the case anyway. In other words, whether Trey's here or not, they have selected Brock Purdy as QB1. And as you've stated last week, I know many people feel this way, quote, it better work. Like, if you're going to, that is a very bold stroke. We drafted somebody number 3 overall, and then the next year we drafted somebody with the last pick in the draft, and we watched them, and we're picking the guy with the last pick in the draft. That's a bold stroke. Now, we've got evidence that makes it understandable to people, because you're like, well, yeah, that's the decision all of us would make. The guy went 7-0 versus someone else who's played very little football, and when he does, looks inconsistent at best. But I think that those kinds of statements are already baked in. They're already baked in. Like, we're even seeing it right now. Here's my favorite for the day, Beard, who still won't call, but Man Beard is doing a whole lot of commenting on YouTube, says the pressure is on Kyle, and he's okay with that. I would submit to you that's never not true. This is the National Football League.
The pressure's on every head coach.
Bill Belichick does not walk into a stadium on Sunday and go, see what happens. Like, why do you think coaches look like they do? Age like they do? They're like presidents. You see what Obama looked like after 8 years versus what he looked like when he started? It ages the hell out of you.
Grandpa Joe looks 106 right now.
I think he is. But anyway,
I set
you know, thank you. I'm glad I finally whacked one. But like this is a very stressful, round-the-clock industry.
But Kyle's pressure, the pressurometer, got ratcheted up by this move.
Did it?
I do think so. And this is where I agree with Beard.
I guess, Brock Purdy starts anyway.
Correct, but if he stays, at least you haven't given up on him and you haven't admitted in the way that he admitted it that this is a mistake. And he used the word failure. And I know that Tim Kawakami, he asked a great question. Kyle should have given him that's a great question, but he asked him about the failure.
That's a great question.
And Tim, Kyle wouldn't say that Trey's a failure because he didn't want to put that label on him, but then he went on to say that he failed Trey Lance. So by trading Trey and admitting to that is where the pressure, in my opinion, gets ratcheted up. Because if you would have kept him as QB3, at least you could say, well, we haven't given up on Trey yet and stuff, and we still feel like, he might be the guy and all the rest of the nonsense.
I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. I just wonder how much that is omnipresent right now anyway. Let's take Bochy in Texas right now. They're losing almost every day.
9-10.
And the Mariners have won almost every day. And the Rangers were running away with that division, and suddenly it's not even September and they've fallen out of first place. Do you think Bruce Bochy is losing sleep? Do you think he feels stress over what's happening with the Rangers?
A little bit.
I would argue yes. I'm stressed.
He's less stressed than Gabe Kapler is. I mean, Bochy's a made man. He's going to the Hall of Fame.
Right, but I don't think on the day, that's my point. I don't think on the day-to-day that they look at it that way. Bill Belichick, really wants to win every Sunday. He does not walk in and we're fine. I'm going to the Hall. We're on to the Hall of Fame. That's just not the way these people are baked. That's not the way this industry is baked. All of these industries, professional sports. Why did Gabe Kapler, approach Danny? Why did he approach the reporter that way a week and a half ago? Because he's stressed. He's snapped. They crack. I don't think anybody in professional sports shows up to their job on a week-to-week basis and goes, you know what? There's no pressure here. It's okay, whichever way it goes. That's there. That's there upon arrival. Everybody knows that this can turn and people can want you fired within 1 year if things don't go well. So I'm not saying you're wrong. I just don't think that's really all that new for Kyle Shanahan.
It's not, but I just think that this move puts more pressure on him because now fans and other people are looking at it and saying what I said last week, which is it better work, and Brock Purdy had better be as good as you think that he is, or else you spent 3 first-round picks to move up for a guy that you didn't use, and you traded him for a 4th, and you could have had Micah Parsons, and you could have had these other players, and you didn't win the Super Bowl. So I think by bringing closure to the Trey Lance era, it does heap on another scoop of pressure onto Kyle Shanahan.
I mean, if you really want to talk pressure, because, of course, you're talking about someone who's never going to have to worry about money, and we all agree, if the 49ers would like to move on from Kyle Shanahan, how many days does it take for him to get another job?
Probably 29.
I'll take the under.
I threw out a number. I thought you were going to say, how many coaches out there could you hire that would be better, as good as, if not better than Kyle?
That's the other question.
That number is probably as small as how many days it takes for him to get a job.
No doubt. I can't tell you how many comments, how many tweets, how many calls. Fire Shanahan. How many of those calls have ever suggested who they should hire?
Lincoln Riley.
None.
Lincoln Riley's the name right now.
That's great.